Awesome. Yo, Angela, what's up?
How's it going? You look all
Hey.
chipper, like you just want to fight.
Yeah, I'm happy.
I know, barely any bruising. How are your hands?
This one, if you can see, is a little bit swollen. This one right
Ooh,
here,
yeah.
yeah, it's pretty swollen. But I just got an X-ray yesterday. The doctor said it's not broken, so good news.
Nice, nice. Dude, how hard is it to convince yourself to throw a whole hard punch doing
I
bare
think
knuckle?
I mean I was the first round I was more hesitant because I was throwing like leg kicks and stuff, but then I just kind of was like, well, I'm about to find out, and I just like once I hit, it felt exactly the same. But you know how
Ah,
a fight is, you don't feel it till after. But I've never ever had my hand swell up ever my whole life in a fight, but this was the first time it did, so obviously it's different, you know.
nice. Should we do
Well,
like an introduction real quick
I was
Yeah.
just
before?
gonna say that.
Yeah. Do an
I was like,
introduction.
Well, thank you for joining us, Charles Rosa, coming off of his big win against Peter Barnett at Gamebred Fighting MMA Bare Knuckle 8. Congratulations. What was your whole experience like going from MMA to Bare Knuckle MMA, and how did you make that decision?
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. You know, I've been following both your careers, and you know, you two are my favorite fighters, and you know, thanks for having me on, and especially Jessica too. You know, I've got to I've got to almost travel most of the world with her. We've got to do some cool armed forces entertainment trips around the world. So, you know, that's obviously how I met her. And Angela, me and you fought on Mexico City car when you fought Tisha Torres like
yeah,
100 years ago. That was a
I
long time ago.
know.
That was epic when I fought Yair Rodriguez. So that was good times. But thanks for having me on the show. It's good to finally be on. And but you know, to answer your question, Jessica, like it was a great experience. It was everything I hoped for. I mean, it was I was definitely nervous when they called me and told me it was bare knuckle because I always said like I would never do that, and like unless the money was right. And you know, the money wasn't exactly what I wanted, but it was still a big fight. You know, I fought the number one guy from New England. He was the Cage Titans current champion, and I'm the CES current champion. So those are like two rivals. And to be able to go there and like defend that belt with honor against the UFC vet and pick up the win was, you know, it was a dream come true. And it's a huge platform too. Like Gamebred is one of the biggest platforms, you know, outside the UFC. So, you know, I want to be fighting in front of people. I want people watching, and you know, to let them know that I still got it. You know what I'm saying?
You definitely looked very impressive in your outing, and it didn't look past the first round. It didn't look like there was any kind of apprehension with fighting without the gloves. They had said in your post-fight interview that there could potentially be talks of a title fight. Have you talked anything more about that?
Yeah, I saw Dean Toole at the roulette table, and I was like, "Yo, what's up with that title shot, bro?" And because he told me, he's like, "If you win this fight, I'll get you a title." So I was like, "Let's make this fight for a title. It makes sense. Like me and Pete Barrett are both current world champions. You know, like we're both ranked number 1 and 2 in the world outside the UFC for lightweights. Like, what's up? Like, why can't we just make?" He said, "Oh, we already did the show. We already did a budget." And I'm like, "Dude, like, just make it. I mean, we'll both do it." And he said, "No, well, okay, well, I'll get back to you. I'll let you know." And then I'm like, "Well, let's make it for like the BMF, like baddest motherfucker from Boston belt, because we're both like the two best guys from Boston." He's like, "All right, I'll get back to you." So neither of those happened, but he did tell me, he's like, "Man, you know, when we have more time to plan it, we'll make the event around you." And you know, that's the plan. I think I deserve a title shot. I'm on a 6-fight win streak with all finishes. You know, my last 5 fights before this were all first round finishes. I'm mixing knockouts and submissions, and then I just, you know, finished a tough UFC vet in the 3rd round. And I thought I fought like a perfect fight. And you kind of said before, like going back, like I was a little bit hesitant, like right when I got picked up from the airplane, like when the guy picked me up, one of Dean Toole's guys, the first thing he said when we get in the car is like, "How you feeling?" I asked the same question you did. "How you think about this bare knuckle fights?" He's like, "You know, last time every single person went to the hospital," and I was like, "Dude, what the fuck?" Like, doesn't make me like less stressed out. Like I was thinking in my head, like everyone went to the hospital. Like that's scary. But luckily I didn't have to go to the hospital. I'm good. I did go to the doctor and found out my hand's not broken, so that's good news.
That's great news. You know, I mean, he's right though, because I feel like I've cornered our friend Beck Rollins in bare knuckle boxing quite a few times, and it seems like there really isn't anyone that comes out of it unscathed. So you're very lucky that there's, you know, minor bruising, minor injuries. You know, coming from somebody who fought on the biggest stage in the UFC and now picking up all of these ones afterwards, what has that journey been like? Has there been any kind of apprehension or frustration since leaving the UFC?
No, I mean, I'm doing what I love. I'm the A side when I fight every time people are coming to see me. You know, it feels good to when your face is on the posters sometimes and everybody is, you know, you're the talk and you're the main thing in the fight. And, you know, I think, you know, the UFC was awesome to me. I really don't have anything bad to say. I actually had 2 fights left on my contract when I was released. I had Hunter Campbell talk to me and Sean Shelby. I, you know, had a over an hour long conversation with each of them, and they kind of just gave me the runaround like, hey, Charles, you know, you're getting older. We have all these guys that are 21, 20 years old that are, you know, 15-0 records that deserve the same opportunity that you got when you came into the UFC. Like, it's only fair to give them a shot. And I'm like, yeah, but you're replacing me. Like, you want to replace me with guys that I can beat. Like, isn't the UFC supposed to have the best fighters? And he's like, no, absolutely. But, you know, we want to give these guys the same opportunity. And on top of it, they didn't really say it, but they're paying these guys, you know, 1/10 of the money that I was getting at that point. I'm, you know, 14 fights in the UFC. My you know, I was getting good pay. But that being said, one of the reasons I decided to leave is I made the decision, you know, not to wait, because they basically said, we don't know when we're going to fight you next. It might be a whole year. Um, I was like, you know, I'm 38 years old. I want to be active. So if you only fight me one time in the next year, I'm 39, and you fight me one time and I'm 40, I love fighting, and it keeps me sane. It's also for my mental health. So in that time since I got released, I decided to get released, and they let me go in my contract, no problems. They were really cool about it. You know, I think that was my 5th win in a row, and I made more money from those 5 wins fighting outside the UFCs is with sponsors and the purse from the fights than I did if I fought one UFC fight and bonus. Like, I mean, I've gotten good bonuses, so I take that in consideration in the UFC. I know I have 5-time performance bonuses, but I mean, in these 5 fights, I made more than I would have if I won one UFC fight, even with the salary I was at. So I think I made the right choice. I mean, I did have to fight 5 times, but I'm happy because I'm on a 5-fight winning streak now, and I'm active and fighting around the world doing what I love.
No, I love hearing that. It's you know, there's a lot of apprehension and attachment to, you know, the UFC banner, and some people are, you know, willing to be sat and shelved and, you know, wait for their opportunity when it's given to them. But it's really nice to hear that on the other side of it, there's a lot of other possibilities, and you're winning.
Yes, yeah, I won a world championship, defended it. You were there for that. It was pretty cool, and that's always been a dream of mine too. And it didn't look like the direction the UFC was taking me, like giving me tough fights in other countries against hometown guys, and, you know, short notice fights. Like, it looked like it was a long ways away. I didn't think it was impossible, but it just seemed like it was going to be it just didn't seem like it made sense. I'm like, how could I possibly fight for a UFC world title if I fight once a year or twice a year, and then I'm fighting these tough fights in other countries? So even if I do, sometimes you win a fight. I've like you were there, Angela, when I fought Yair Rodriguez in Mexico. He ended up being UFC world champion, but we're in Mexico City, man, and I'm fighting a Mexican, and it goes to split decision. It doesn't go my way. That changed the whole trajectory of my career. So you know, sometimes I'm still bitter about it, but, you know, I think things happen for a reason. I'm in a good spot now, so I'm happy.
Well, you know, I can relate to that.
Yeah, that's what you get.
Those crossroads in the road where you're like, man, if the judges had just liked me a little more than the other guy, then that might mean a world of difference with my career. It's
Where are
funny
you from?
too.
What's your hometown, Angela?
I'm from Maryland, but
Yeah,
then
okay.
I lived in New York, and now I'm in San Diego. So it's like
Yeah.
I don't really have a group of people who are going to connive for me.
You have a whole fan base around the world. What are you talking about?
Hey man, I feel like Brazilians come in and they're like, we like her better, even though she's from a different country. But yeah, no, it sucks. You know, I feel your pain with that, and definitely on the getting older side too. And it's cool that you were able to just say, hey, I'm gonna get out here and fight a bunch of fights and just do what I love to do. Is it more of a hustle on the outside of the UFC?
Yeah. That's the thing, is like the one thing I do miss about the UFC is, like, I'm not, you know, calling sponsors asking for money, making these shirts with all my sponsors on them. Like, it's a lot of, it really is a lot of work. And I mean, I kind of manage myself at this point because I kind of know the game. I've done it so long. And,
Uh,
you know, but I make shirts. I got my walkout banner. I'm calling these sponsors, making sure I'm getting the money, making sure I'm doing my social media posts to to keep the sponsors happy. Where in the UFC, I was just telling my roommate's Daniel Marcos. He's a Peruvian fighter that lives with me. He's my roommate. He's 16-0 in the UFC, 4-0 in the UFC right now. And, I've been kind of showing him the blueprint. But it's like when I see him, all he has to worry about is the fight. Like he does some interviews and stuff, but it's all good stuff. But he's not worrying about, putting sponsors together, getting his fight shorts, making his fight kit, getting his corners flown out. Like everything's pretty much done. All he has to do is worry about the fight, which I'm like much better when it's just focused on one thing. Like when I have Jessica knows me from the trips. Like I have like crazy ADD. I'm doing like 100 things at once. And I'm like, I need some help. Like it's hard, but I've been able to do it and I'm happy. And, it's a learning thing. And I also get the blueprint from my little brother, Lucas Rosa, who's, he's undefeated now, 4-0 pro, and he's following the footsteps and he got my blueprint. So it makes it a little bit, easier to kind of show him the ropes and, to kind of go back and resort back to doing what I did to get to the UFC to redoing it. I mean, I'm definitely better at it. So I'm able to do pretty well making sponsors and stuff, but I do miss like the opportunity to get those, 50K bonuses. And I miss that Venom money was pretty good. I was like, well, I don't know, like close to 20 G's a fight. So
Yeah.
lucky if I make that, on my own now, but if I do, it's a hustle. But like I said, I'm not complaining. I do what I love to do and I'm still at it and I'm healthy. And that's number one.
That's awesome. Did you have a manager when you were in the UFC?
Yeah, I had managers. I had tons of them. My most notable one. I wish I just had Brian Butler, like Jessica, because he's awesome. He's like the only dude that didn't manage me. But I mean, I've always had good relationships with the managers. It's never been like bad things. They just, certain guys are, how the politics work. Certain guys are tight with certain people at the right times, and they get what I need to get done. And whoever can do the best job of that, that's the whole point of being a manager. But yeah, I mean, I've also paid a lot of money out. Back in the day, managers would take 20% of your purse. The gym would take 10% of your purse. Yeah, back in the day. I mean, when I first got signed to the UFC, managers were taking 20%. It was normal. 10% goes to the gym or 5%, whatever. And after taxes, man, you owe money, So it's like, I figured it out now. I know what to do. I got the blueprint and I'm doing well, so.
Nice. How hard was that conversation to let your manager go when you decide
Well,
to
I
do
didn't let him go.
yourself?
I just said, hey, like, can you get me a new UFC contract? And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, this guy can. And he's like, okay, well, I want the best. And that's the thing is like all my managers have always wanted the best for me. And if they didn't, I feel like they wouldn't have been managing me in the first place. Like none of them have been bad. It's nothing, no bad will. They've all done amazing. Like Joe Cavallaro was good friends with Dana White. He is good friends with Dana White, and he was one of my best managers. He got me, 3 new UFC contracts when I think Sean Shelby at the time was kind of giving a little bit of pushback. Like, oh, we don't know if we're going to resign you. Like my first UFC contract, I was 2-2. I won 2 fights, lost 2 fights, 2 finishes. My 2 wins were 2 finishes. My 2 losses was a split decision to Yair Rodriguez and a decision against the number 8 guy in the world, Dennis Seaver, and they were both fight of the night. So think about this: I'm 2-2, both losses fight of the night in other countries, and one of them on 4 days' notice against the number 8 guy in the world. My first UFC fight. The other 2 I picked up my 2 wins at the Boston Garden, which I have the most all-time wins at, like big fights, big stages. And then they're like, yeah, we're not going to re-sign you. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm 2-2, but like both of my fights are fight of the night. The whole point of this is UFC is to be an entertaining fighter. One of them I took on 3 days' notice, kind of like ear shut, like nothing. He's like, no, we love you. We'll bring you back if you can go and win a couple. So, I got my guy Joe Cavallaro, who's awesome Boston guy, good friends with Dana, called Dana. And once Dana found out, he's like, wait, what do you mean? Of course you got to resign that kid. He's a monster, dude. Like he fought fucking Dennis Seaver to one of the greatest fights ever. Like it was fight of the year, for like 2000 whatever year it was when I fought Dennis Seaver. Like he's like, resign that kid. And then but that was the only guy that could get that phone call. You can't just call Dana White and he's picking up the phone back then, So, I mean, he was able to make that call. So anyone I released, to answer your question, anyone that was completely understanding and they just wanted the best for me. So
Nice.
So knowing all that you know now with all of your past experience with managers and organizations, would you encourage young fighters to get a manager or to kind of hustle by themselves?
Dude, combination. You got to use all the resources you can possibly use. it's like you don't know. I got my buddy, you know, Dustin Lampros right now. He's 9-0. He was on the Ultimate Fighter show. 9-0, all first round finishes. He's ready, but he's been waiting a whole year. Every single day, he's dieting. He's calling me. Oh, I might fight this weekend. I might. Every day, like, you know, Jason House is managing him right now, and every week he gets a call. Like probably once every 2 weeks, he's calling me saying, "Oh, I'm gonna fly out to Vegas tomorrow. You want to come?" And then everything's ready to go. He's diets for 2 days. He just can't sleep for 2 days. He's cutting weight, and then the fight never happens. And it's just like, I don't think it's anything anybody's doing malicious, but man, like if I was to say, I would say just use all the resources you can. You know, I think that it's good to have a manager, because if you don't have Dana White's phone number, or Sean Shelby, or Dean Toole, or whoever is, you know, in charge of these promotions that you want to fight for, then someone has that number. That there's a lot of value to that. So you got to make sure you're getting, you know, to the right people. But yeah, I think a manager is very useful. I used him my whole career. It just sucks paying him.
You're like, what did you do for this? Oh, okay. You have
I
a
made
phone number.
call, but phone call is worth a lot of money these days. So.
Yeah, it is.
So what is on the horizon after fighting? You've been fighting for a long time. You've talked about your age. You've talked about all of your experience and stuff like that. Do you see yourself fighting for much longer, or have you given any thought to that at all?
I don't know. They were asking me the same conversation. I had a neck injury like 5 years ago. I had a double neck fusion, and that's what the doctors would say to me in the interviews. They're like, "What are you gonna do? You can't fight." The doctor literally told me, he's like, "It's improbable you'll ever fight again. Like, you got to retire. Like, you're done." And I'm like, "No." He's like, "It's less than a 1% chance you're coming back." And I was like, "Are you telling me it's improbable or impossible?" Because 1% sounds pretty good to me. I'm a 1%, and I came back and I fought. But, you know, I mean, nobody beats Father Time. I mean, I don't know. Mike Tyson just fought, but
He didn't beat Father
like,
Time.
I don't know.
You fought him, though.
Yeah, but I mean, I just, like, I'm the type of person that I do what I love to do, and I probably will do it till the wheels fall off. Like, hopefully they never do, but I do what I love to do, and it sure beats going to, you know, I worked in a restaurant all the way fighting up through the UFC. Like, you know, beats making Caesar salads for people all day and steaks. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I really love fighting. I love coaching. So, you know, I coach my little brother. I think he's the next up and coming prospect. My brother Lucas Rosa. I got a couple guys in the team. I got my roommate Daniel Marcos, who I help coach him a lot. I brought him onto the Contender, got him to 4-0 in the UFC, and I would love, you know, for him to see him win a UFC world title, which I think he's very capable of doing. And man, coaching, you know what I'm saying? I don't know how much money there is in it, but maybe if, like, you know, Daniel becomes like Conor McGregor or something, maybe get like a couple dollars, but I don't even know. I don't.
I mean, Daniel is very impressive. He's incredible.
Good, but I mean, like, I mean, I do it, like, I never ask anybody for money and stuff like that. I do it because I love it, and at the end of the day, I think if you do what you love and you're the best at it, then you'll be happy. I mean, it definitely would be nice to get like a couple $1 million, like someone just to give it to me, but I don't know. I'm still waiting on that.
You're definitely gonna have to start asking for it. Okay,
Yeah,
so don't do charity cases forever.
Yeah, I do a lot
Make
of
sure
charity stuff, but
yeah.
it's what it is. But to answer your question, I do. What was the question you asked? I don't know. You said, like, do I fight forever?
What's on the horizon?
Am I gonna fight forever? Well, I mean, I'm gonna do it if I can. Like, my uncle Tom the Bomb Rosa, he's 56 years old right now, and he just won, you know, the New England Tough Man competition for boxing. I mean, he's not making money.
I love it.
He does it out of love, but he's still cracking at it. So it gives me hope to be able to do what I love. Like, I don't want to be getting hit in the head forever. I want to be healthy, but in the same breath, I want to be able to do what I love and not have people telling me what to do. So I'm still there, and I'm still making money, and man, I'm still winning. So until somebody can beat me and give me a reason to retire, I don't feel like I've ever lost. I mean, I guess you could call me delusional, but all my fights, I fight like a style like, if you don't knock me out or submit me, I don't feel like I lost. Well, the judges said I lost, you know, but if the judges, you know, whatever, but that's what it is. So I just feel like until somebody puts me away, then give me a reason to retire, you know?
I love that. I'm like that too. I'm like, if you can't finish me, then kick rocks. Like, you
Yeah,
didn't win.
you
You didn't win. Let's
didn't win.
keep
As soon as
going.
you said you won, man.
Yeah, let's keep going. 10 rounds. Let's see who
I
survives
feel like, I
that.
swear to God, I feel like I'd be undefeated.
Right? Hey.
If it was to the death every fight, if someone quits, I never lost. I never lost ever.
No, I can see that in you. I can see that drive in you. Like you're unbreakable. I feel like you would just
Yeah,
keep going, keep
boss is
going.
strong.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about Father Time being undefeated, but the fight right before yours was pretty crazy. We saw the tail of the tape, and it was like a 32-year-old versus a 48-year-old or something
Yeah,
like that.
Alex Nicholson versus
Yeah,
yeah, and he walked
Frank
out before
Tate.
me, bro. He walked out before me. He's like, I'll be
I was
right
like,
back. And I was
oh
like,
God.
yeah, he never came back. And I was like, fuck, what happened? But, you know, he's like, I'm not losing to a 48-year-old. And man, that's what happened. He lost. And I
Oof.
love Alex Nicholson. And it's tough, but it's a brutal sport. Like, that's what I said to my, you know, um, I said to my little brother, like my mom, you know, my girl came, you know, people came to the fight and they're like, I'm like, this isn't like a basketball game. It's not a hockey game. Like I'm
Yeah.
going to like war. Like I'm gonna try to kill this guy and he's gonna try to kill me. And we're in Mississippi with, you know, they're gonna be hooting and hollering, like going, like seeing blood everywhere. But you know, luckily I made it out safe. So
Yeah. Dude, it was really wild watching the whole card because I didn't realize how much different bare knuckle looked from just from regular MMA. Like the bare knuckle part of it just made it look like a street fight more. It made it look like not even a street fight, but just like
it's
a
just cool.
real
Yeah.
fight.
Well, it
It
is.
looked
Yeah, that's the
real.
thing is everybody says like not to take anything away because I love fighting in the UFC, but UFC is the ultimate fighting championship, man. Gamebred is the real ultimate fighting championship. Like,
Mm.
what's more ultimate than have fighting with no gloves on? And it's not like BKFC. Everyone's like, oh, that's the baddest sport. No, it's not because you can't knee and elbow somebody in the face, and you can't use everything. There's rules. Like, there's literally like no rules in Gamebred. Like, and you're fighting with bare knuckles. Like, that's the ultimate form of fighting, and I think that's the baddest sport in the world right now. And I think it's tough to argue that.
Is
For
that
me,
your
it was
favorite promotion? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
all right. It's okay.
Is
What'd you
that
say?
has that been your favorite promotion to fight for so far?
Well, I liked fighting in the UFC because of the platform. Like, you know, being able to fight at the Boston Garden, like where the Bruins and the Celtics play, like seeing all the banners hanging and, you know, the publicity and the, you know, sold out arenas, like where, you see, you know, the Boston Bruins are there watching you, the Celtics are there, you're meeting like celebrities. You know, there was some cool people at Gamebred, but as far as the platform, I think it's right there along with the UFC. I think that Gamebred card had more press than some of the, you know, Apex cards I fought at. So in the UFC. So yeah, this is where I want. I want to be in the biggest platform, fighting in front of the most people, and on the biggest stage.
For me, watching bare knuckle MMA was a lot more palatable than bare knuckle boxing. It just it makes
Yeah,
more sense to me. And I mean, I could have a little bit of a bias because I come from MMA, but it just seemed like a lot more full sport to me.
yeah.
Do you see it becoming mainstream faster than bare knuckle boxing?
I think they're both on their way up. I mean, I think you know, I got a lot of offers from BKFC. You know, Feldman has called me a few times asking me to fight on his cards. It's just that the money wasn't right. I need at least $100,000 to fight, and he offered that, but it was then something else ended up happening. Like they changed venues, and then there couldn't be as much. Like they came back on the price, but for you to tell me to stand in front of somebody and use my two bare knuckles to punch someone in the head and have no other weapons, you're gonna have to pay me a lot of money. And I do think that what you said to answer your question, yeah, like I think that they're both growing ultimately fast. Like everybody wants to see it. The bare knuckle boxing, I think, is definitely a little bit more brutal and less like you're gonna hurt your hand or you're gonna hurt your face, one or the other, 100%. There's no way around it.
Or
Where
both?
in Gamebred, it's a skill. It's mixed martial arts. Like you can kick, you can punch. You saw my, you know, you saw I tried to fight very skilled out there. I was trying, you know, to really use all my skills, and that's what I tried to display and what I showed, and it worked. And man, I think this sport was meant for me because I feel like I'm a real tough kid, and I think that, you know, sometimes the gloves were getting in the way of my submissions and the hand wraps, like that stuff actually didn't ruin it, but like every time I'd fight in the UFC, I'd always be like, oh man, like damn, like I always forget what it feels like to
Yeah.
have your gloves and hand wraps on. Like it's a lot. It's you don't train like that. You just put some gloves on, you don't wrap your hands, you put some tape around it, and you go to work every day and you train. But when someone else wraps your hand, they have some thick gauze on it, and then they put the gloves on. Now you're like this, and you don't have your grips. So I have my grips, man, and you saw what happened. I choked him unconscious.
That was
That
awesome.
position you had was was amazing. It looked awful to be in.
Oh, poor kid. I hit him with a couple elbows. And I'm like, he's like, oh, dude, I felt so, like, I had him in a good position. Even Joe Lozon after the fight was like, man, you got to teach me that crucifix position, dude. That was nasty. And to have a legend like Joe Lozon, like someone I looked up to, you know, coming up in the game, like, you know, obviously grappler based, techniques was really cool to you know, on my end, to have someone like that, you know, being like, oh, you got to show me that, and he was in Pete's corner, so it was pretty cool.
That's funny. Yeah, it was awesome to see you set that up. I can understand what you're talking about with the gloves, because a lot of times it's hard to get in those nooks and crannies too. And then they can grab the gloves and fight the
Yeah,
gloves
I've
easier than
stopped
the
a lot of
hands.
submissions like that, and I've also gotten a
Yeah.
lot, so yeah.
What did you think watching Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira? Do you think the gloves had a big
Yeah,
had a lot to do with that fight?
I think if that was, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I did watch the fight. I think that, I think Charles Oliveira would be even better bearing a BKFC. Like, I think Michael Chandler would probably have a harder time because he has so much horsepower behind his punches that he'd probably break his hand every time he lands. If he lands on top of someone's head, his hand's broken. Where Charles Oliveira, you know, he doesn't have as much power behind his punches, but he's more accurate. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, this, it's not the same exact thing. Like, it benefits less. It benefits people that don't have as much power, and they have more like technique, probably the BKFC, and like better chokes. And then it probably limits the people that are like shorter and like have a lot of power, because they can hurt their hands when they hit. If you hit someone, like, I was trying not to punch as hard as I could. I was like, I'm like trying to snap my punches, because I'm like, the first round you asked, like, oh, like, well, I was moving a lot. I was like worried. I'm like, if I like blitz, because I have a blitz that I do that like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson showed me, like his dad Ray showed it to me, and it's like a karate blitz. Like, I turn my toe and I just rip a straight shot down the middle. And I was like, man, I definitely 100% will hit this blitz right now, but like, is it worth it? Because I'm winning the round. So what's the point of throwing a blitz? Besides, if I knock him out, then the fight's over. But will it knock him out first? And if I do hit him hard enough to knock him out, am I going to break my hand and then be in a lot of trouble? So I didn't do it. I kind of just waited, kept winning, I won the first round. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll do it the second round. And then, like, once he hit me, then I don't even remember. I just fought. But you know, I played strategically as long as I could.
Yeah. They just brought back the old gloves for John Jones. He gets special treatment. But
Interesting.
I think they're gonna keep the new gloves for the rest of the cards, right? Until, I don't know, I guess the headliner complains again. But a lot of people have been debating what the difference is, because there's been a lot less knockouts since we got the new gloves. And like me and Jess have used it. I feel like you've probably seen it before too, just from cornering your brother and stuff. But have you felt them? Have you felt the difference between the old gloves and the new gloves yet?
Yeah, no, yeah. My roommate Daniel is like, he actually gave me a pair of them because I needed some gloves to train one day, and like, they definitely don't feel. Are you talking about the new UFC gloves?
Yeah, the new UFC gloves.
Yeah, they feel softer. I feel like they feel softer.
Yeah.
I think the reason for them was to make a bend in the glove, right? So it doesn't eye pokes. That was the reason for it, or?
I think so. I think they were also trying to get more
like
knockouts.
That's the thing. It's like,
yeah.
It is softer though, you know. But the thing about the softness is that you can't get like a direct hit. So like I feel like it's a little bit softer. So when you hit, like, it kind of like, it's not as precise because it moves like a little more cushiony. But with the hard gloves, like the older ones, they're a little bit harder, right? Would you agree they're a little bit like harder than like?
Yeah, it's like having like a knuckle duster, you know?
Yeah, there's nothing to the new gloves.
Well, that's what my Uncle Tommy said too when I told him I'm like fighting without the gloves, because I asked if he ever fought. He's like, well, there's a couple times they wanted me to do it, but because he's more of a boxer. But he's like, I'm gonna be honest, like, being a boxer, like, seeing the gloves that you already fight in, I mean, those, you basically just have a little piece of like a little tiny cushion over your hands. It's like those are like not. It's like not having no gloves. UFC gloves are like no gloves anyways, so you just take off even more. But it's like, it's pretty much the same thing. I think pretty close.
Yeah.
I think it holds the metacarpals in place a little bit better than just a couple, bands of tape that bare knuckle.
I've never hurt my hand in 50. I've had over 50 fights, and I've never hurt my hand ever. Like in all my fights, I've never even bruised a knuckle. Like, and my hand was like looked like a softball after the fight. So I was like, oh. But I also
It
had
looked
him in
like
a
fake bread.
crucifix, and I was ripping. I knew when I was hitting him, like in the head, when I had him in crucifix, because I must have landed like 10 unanswered strikes in the crucifix. It hurt so bad every time I hit him, but I was like, it hurts him more, and I just tripped. I said, I'm going, thinking they would stop it, and they never stop it. So then I'm like, maybe I should try an elbow. My hand really hurts, and I was like, boom, and I hit him with the elbow, and I'm like, oh, that hurt. So,
At least that happened later in the
it's,
fight. Like sometimes the adrenaline wears off a
yeah,
little
that's
bit
why
too
it was third
soon,
round.
and
So
the
that's why I kept
injuries
punching.
start. Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you get to see what he looked like afterwards? Like, was his face all
Yeah,
swollen
no,
up from?
I talked to him actually. I talked to him. You know, I saw him at the casino after, and played a couple hands of roulette with him, and
Oh,
he said he thinks he broke his jaw. He's at the actually he texted me today because he gave me his number. He's like, I'm at the doctor trying to find out if I have a broken jaw, and I was like, well, let me know. I don't know. I'm sorry, but
Oh my God.
hopefully, I was like, I'm at the doctor seeing if I have a broken hand. I'm like, you got a hard head, but he's like, I don't know if you liked hearing that, but whatever.
at least you hurt something on my
He's a
end.
good kid though. He's it's like we all do this for the same reason, and he's from the same neck of the woods as me, and I respect him. I've watched all of his fights. He was the current Cage Titans world champion, and he beat some good guys. He just beat a kid Joe Giannetti. I don't know if you saw the kid Joe Giannetti just got a knockout in karate combat, but that was his last win. So like he's fighting the best guys and he's winning. So he just had a tough night against me. But he'll be back too.
Yeah, and he'll learn a lot from that. Do you have anything looking forward, any offers yet? Are you still just like healing up?
Well, it's funny you say that because like I'm like so like not burnt out from the fight, but after the fight, I had to fly directly Saturday morning to my grandmother's funeral. She passed away at 98, so it happened like 3 or 4 days before the fight. It was her time. She was 98, but I went right from the fight. Didn't sleep right to the funeral. To right from there, I stayed in, hang out with my family and for a day, obviously, to like the grieve and whatever. Then I flew right back home, and I just didn't even have a second. So like, I'm like, I need to sleep. Like I slept like 14 hours straight last night, but I woke up and I was still got a lot going on. But it's just like. But you asked the question, has anybody been calling? But my phone's been ringing all day. Like I have like 3 managers
Dang.
call me, hey, you want to fight? And then BKFC call me asking me to fight. I've had people messaging me asking me to fight. So I mean, it's the position you want. When you get people calling you, then the hand, you got the good hand, and the ball's in my court. So I get to call the shots now, and that's what I wanted. That's the good thing about leaving the UFC. Nobody tells me what to do. They ask me what I want to do, and I get to call the shots. Where in the UFC, they're like, "You're fighting in 3 days," and I'm like, "No, I'm not." And they're like, "Okay, well, you could find you could fight somewhere else." And like, "What do you mean? What does that mean? Does that mean you're cutting me?" I suggest you take the fight. I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck?
No, it's like that.
They're
Yeah.
such
Yeah, dude,
bullies.
that's not the way to do. That's not. I don't like doing business like that. Like, they're not bad people
Uh,
to pay me, and they've done everything they've told me they're gonna do. But I don't like not having control or stuff like that. And now I do. So I'm the A side, and I get to call the shots now. And man, I'm open to everybody. I'm a free agent. On a 6-fight win streak. I'm a defending world champion, and I just will beat a UFC vet, the top ranked guy in the world. So. If you guys know anybody, let me know. I'm down to fight. I'll fight like maybe I would say next week, but maybe 2 weeks.
we gotta get you down here for
Saying,
Cage Warriors. That's what we need to
yeah,
do. You
yeah.
come.
Line them up. Let me know. I'm in. You
Yeah.
can manage me. You can manage me, Angela. You got my.
Oh, just for one fight. I don't,
Yeah.
I don't want to tie
How
you
much?
She'll
down.
only take
I'll buy
10%.
you dinner. I'll buy you guys dinner after that.
Oh, that'll be my pay. I'll take it.
Instead of the percentage. No.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for your time, Charles. With everything going on with your family, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
I know you want to spend time resting and reconnecting with them and supporting each other. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. Definitely look forward to rewatching it. And, I appreciate both of you, and I love the podcast you guys keep doing. So keep up the hard work. And, Angela, when you fighting next,
I don't know yet. I'm still waiting. They just announced that they're doing the LA card, but I haven't heard anything yet. So I'm
Oh,
like,
that's the one. You guys better be on that. I want to see
I'm
you.
trying.
But
I'm
I'm gonna be
trying.
at the UFC Tampa. I don't know if you guys if anybody knows
Ooh.
that, but my roommate Daniel Marcos is fighting UFC Tampa December 14th. So hopefully he stays undefeated. So I'll be there. But I appreciate you guys. You're the best. Thanks for having me on, and I'll talk to you soon and catch you later.
Awesome.
All right.